All right, guys, you ready to wrap up the Coliseum? Awesome. We've had a really awesome 2 days and two more really cool things for you. Right now, I'm going to introduce a guy who's made some films that many of you have seen, been inspired by video games, and he's here to tell you a little bit about how the video game audience is going to play a role in his next project, as you can see, Oat Studios. So please join me in welcoming director Neill Blomkamp. Neil? What's up? Got some fans out there.
I hope so. I'm surprised I have any fans. I'll have to chap you sometimes.
Oh.
I love Chappy.
There you go. So Neil, we got to talking a few weeks ago. Been a huge fan of your work for many years, and I think everyone was curious what you're going to be doing next. There's a lot of talk last year on social media around what you might do with Alien, other things, and people were kind of curious. And then all of a sudden, word started to get out about this Oat Studios that you were putting together. Mm-hmm. And what I think is really interesting about this, and as I got talk to you about it, it's like you obviously still want to make films, but the way you want to get them out there, you have a different approach to it, and Steam, as we're about to hear, and the gaming audience is going to play a part in that role. So first of all, tell me, I guess, this concept of Oat Studios, you've done a lot of, big budget Hollywood films.
Right.
Many of them have, been inspired in some ways by the video game world, and I assume you play games, love games, right?
I do, and I come out of 3D graphics and visual effects, and so I find, three-dimensional environments, virtual environments, are incredibly interesting to me for whatever reason. I just love them. Yeah. One of the Oats pieces that we're doing right now at the moment actually is an entirely computer-generated piece that's being rendered in real time in Unity. And
cool.
So that'll come out later in the year, but. A lot of the sort of, I think the thing that draws me to games is the fact that I used to make three-dimensional environments. I love 3D environments. I love the fact that you can drop the viewer into it. You can start including sound design and create sort of emotions and stuff. And I think that's the primary reason. So I think that I play games just to touch that more than to get into an everlasting sort of combat with somebody else, if that makes sense. Unless it's at Oat Studios on Friday when CSGO is happening.
Have there been games over the years that have particularly inspired you?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, Half-Life and Half-Life 2. I mean, the exosuit at the end of District 9 is basically just Half-Life weapons. Yeah. He doesn't have a rebar gun, which I suppose could be included. But, a pig-flinging anti-gravity gun is a good move.
Yeah.
That was a big deal for me. Games like Battlefield and just being in an environment where, living in the 21st century where that many players can be linked together, all bringing down an enemy, is amazing. Weird indie games like Fez, stuff like that. Okay. For some reason, that felt like some weird alternate reality to me that I really loved, and maybe in the soundtrack. I'm trying to think, going back, Metal Gear on PlayStation in 1998 was a huge deal for me, yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, and that was weird. I told Hideo that today. I moved to Canada at the point that came out from South Africa, and it's if you have a big event in your life like that, there's things that sort of are lodged in, sort of into your psyche, I feel like that game was like that for me.
Wow, very cool. So, when you were deciding on what you wanted to do for your next project, tell us about the gestation of Oats Studios and what the goal of Oats is.
The goal of Oats is pretty simple. I mean, it's to be entirely free to be creative. That's the goal. It's as simple as that. And I just want to, I'm not rallying against Hollywood studios. I'm just trying to figure out if there's a different way to have a one-on-one relationship with the audience that ultimately is watching or, enjoying, hopefully, the work that I'm doing or the work that the people of Oats is doing. And maybe there's a way to do that where they can actually fuel our ability to make more of it, So if you start off small, start with short pieces, see if people like them, treat them like snapshots of these science fiction vistas or horror environments, whatever it may be. And people are like, actually, that's really cool. I like that. I want to see more of it. I'm going to fuel these guys directly. And so the thought process behind that is what platform do you use to do that? How do you even go about doing that? And you think of iTunes and stuff like iTunes, but what you don't get then as readily available as you can on Steam is like with the first film that we're going to put out, or any of the films we put out, we'll release all the raw footage. We'll release all of the 3D assets we use to make the visual effects. We'll put out the ability for audience members who feel like they have an idea of where another film in that series could go, where we can sort of curate that inside Oats and be like, oh yeah, that's super interesting. Like I want to actually work with this user to figure out where that stream may go. And as long as I'm the one that feels like I'm being creative and I'm kind of gathering people around me that want to do the same thing, that's the point of Oats.
Yeah, and it's so fascinating to hear you say that, because for many years I've believed, and Gabe and a lot of other people have thought of the idea of allowing users to play in your universe freely. There's a lot of cool things that can happen, and certainly when I was growing up, the mod scene for games like Doom, Quake, that was incredible, right? People were building levels.
Right.
I remember like the Star Wars mod for Doom and things, and it was just so fun to be able to sort of play with that world, but you sort of had to do it, using assets that you weren't really supposed to be using, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah.
And now to have a filmmaker say, hey, by the way, here's all our raw footage, here's all our music, here's all our 3D assets. People are going to go off and, want to make games, other films, other things.
Yeah, I hope so. I
universe.
don't really know actually what's going to happen,
Yeah.
and maybe people will find value in it, and maybe they won't. Like we really don't know. But the point of it is to try to think of filmmaking in something that is maybe a little bit closer to games. Like if the way that it looks on Steam at the moment, like the first film that we put out is called Rakka, and Rakka's treated like DLC as though it's software. It's like these are the assets you're basically acquiring. So instead of map extensions and skins or whatever it may be, it's like the raw elements of filmmaking. That's just an interesting concept. I know I would have been into that, but I don't know.
Right,
if the
and
audience
no,
will
I think
be.
it's super compelling, but no one has done it yet. So I'm
No.
fascinated about sort of the process you went through of figuring out, hey, Steam is an interesting platform. Could I do this? How do I put this together? Like, how long has that been gestating in your mind?
Well, we've been actively working for 2 years. So, I think the idea on Steam is about 3 years old. And going.
Why was it
Yeah.
like Steam? Were you playing games on Steam? How did you come across?
Why Steam?
Yeah, why Steam?
I was playing games on Steam, just because, I love PCs more than consoles. That's just me. Again, coming back to the 3D graphics thing. It's, I need like 128 gigs of RAM and like 26 GTX 1080 cards. Like I just need massive amounts of processing power. But, so anyway, because it's PC, that leads you to Steam, I suppose, and I don't know, I was just familiar with it. And then, there was also this thing where when Valve was starting up a lot of the VR stuff, they invited me down along with a few other filmmakers and stuff to just look at the VR stuff that they were doing before the Vive came out. And
did you go in the room with all the codes and everything? Yeah,
exactly. And that it made me feel like that Valve would probably support us, or that Steam would be a venue where we would be looked after to some degree. So I think all of those things combined just ended up in this place where, we now have this project that we're going to launch that could totally fail or work.
Well, some of you guys have you seen any of the little clips on YouTube of some of the stuff that Neil's doing? All right.
What? There's like one dude.
Okay. Need to do it. Don't worry, we may have a little more to show you in a little bit here. So.
Yeah.
But I think you mentioned VR, and that's something that I think a lot of we had a panel this morning talking about VR. Are you bullish on sort of the idea of VR? It doesn't sound like necessarily a part of initially what you're doing, but it's like, where do you see VR going for a creative storyteller like you?
I mean, VR is very interesting to me, but I think it's interesting in a very different way. Like I'm not as drawn to telling like narrative, passive viewer experience stories in that medium. I think if you are going to do that, you're going to need 8K per eye, kind of totally immersive, no pixel kind of, you're going to need to be put there. And I love VR. I love things as simple as standing in San Francisco in Google Earth in VR, right? Like I have a Vive next to my desk. But I'm not drawn to it in a filmmaking sense. I would rather make traditional films, but disassemble the films and try to see if there's a way to interact with the audience in that sense. There are, however, like I was saying about like the real-time piece that we want to do, we can set up our cameras. We have our own mocap stage at Oats, right? So I filmed the cameras for that piece like a week after we filmed the actors. You treat the actors like a stage performance. You come back a week later, you film the cameras as much as you want. handle that footage off to the editor, and then let the editor assemble what goes back to a normal piece that the audience can digest two-dimensionally. But we have the option, if we want, of releasing that whole piece now as like something that's ported out for Vive. So you could go and experience it if you want to. That's really interesting to me. But it's piggybacked on top of traditional filmmaking.
So is that going to be something built in Unity, and I mean interactive in the sense of you'll be able to sort of move around the space, but it'll be a story that will play out? Like, are you actually interacting with the environment, or
No.
it's more just it's real time?
It's
rendered
passive.
in real time, passive in real time.
You're able to look wherever you want.
Cool.
But you're getting around, other than Lytro. I mean, Lytro as a company is very interesting, but parallax issues and like I'm not really that interested in 360-degree orbs of video, and like that just doesn't interest me as much, So Lytro interests me, and true immersive 3D VR interests me, but this isn't that.
Interesting. Okay, cool. And can you tell us anything about the real-time piece you're doing? Like, what's the setting of it? What kind of story are you trying to tell with that?
It's not as interesting as the pieces that are about to come out soon.
Ooh. Okay. There's a tease.
Yeah.
Yeah. So tell us about what's about to come out here. And I think people have seen some of the teasers online, and this idea that when you release it, you don't want to just put out a film. You want to put out these assets, right, as part of it?
Well, what we want to do, at the end of the day, is make full feature films that are fueled by the audience. So the goal isn't short films. The goal is like large entertainment experiences that are as real as Avatar is in a theater. It's going to either take a really long time to get there, or it's just not going to be possible. But attempting it is really cool. And the best way to do that, I think, initially, like the pieces that we put out now, we'll put out one very soon, and then we'll put out 3 or 4 between now and a month from now. And the audience will basically be able to see these 20-minute sort of windows into potential worlds that I really like, and the guys at Oats really like putting together. And if enough people online feel as though this is something I want to watch more of, they can watch everything for free. Everything's on YouTube for free on Oats Studios. Everything's on Steam for free in Oats Studios. But a way to support us is to purchase all of the DLC extra stuff. Right, for like $4.99, get all this extra stuff. I don't want to charge for it, but our business model is to set fire to money right now. So it would be good to try to get something back.
Well, it just shows how interested people are in that content.
Yeah, exactly.
So the idea is, the 3D models and stuff people will be able to get, gamers will be able to get, and then are you cool if someone wants to, start hacking those into a game, or wants to build a game around that, or like what are the restrictions around what people can do?
Well, the only restriction is that like if I created the Terminator, and someone takes the Terminator and turns it into like Halo with the Terminator and makes $1 billion, we should get like a few cents or a smoothie or something, right? That seems fair, yeah?
Yes.
Okay, so if you're going to make money off of it, you can license it where like we want a percentage of what you make. But it should be clear to everyone that anyone from like, one person in a basement to Ubisoft can have any idea that we have and run with it. Yeah. But if it's people not monetizing it, you're free to just do whatever you want all day long, 24/7, cool. With everything.
Right, Creative Commons style. That's cool.
Yeah, if it's bigger, I'm sure it's going to get messy and like it'll be hard to track. But like, try to give us some cash. Like,
No, but I could see, someone's going to take a lot of these models and like, create a Steam destination around it or something like that, and like
which I would love.
Right.
I would love that. I mean, the more people that adopt it and just get behind it, it's going to be fueled by whether people like the pieces or not. And if you think of Oats Volume 1 like an album, right? Like I keep saying, like I'm very jealous of musicians and authors because they get to like express themselves for the price of a typewriter, and for us it's like $1 million a minute. Yeah. It's difficult. But if you think of it like an album where you have 8 pieces, these are 8 tracks, these are 8 experiences that Oats put out, and they're, between 2 minutes to 20 minutes each. What we want to do is make more albums like that. And if you have 5 albums, like Oats Volume 5, between 1 to 5, there's going to be some really cool film in there that can be a feature. And if the audience is behind it enough, maybe we don't have to make it traditionally. We can just make it with the users financially. But that's difficult to do. The pieces that we have right now are very much in the sort of like the darker science fiction horror kind of realm. They're darker than District 9 or Elysium. The first piece is really cool. It's about an alien invasion. The second piece that will come out a few weeks from the first one is more surreal. It's kind of like it would be somewhere between Apocalypse Now and The Matrix. Sort of like Vietnam surrealist filmmaking. That's a lot more experimental, I think, than what I could normally get greenlit in Hollywood. But my point is, like, Volume 2 will have a whole bunch of other stuff. Volume 3, Volume 4. So if we can just get over the hump of beginning the sort of endeavor of trying to start the company and see if there's a way to monetize it, there could be many other ideas that I think will become quite cool.
And these ideas, you've got to tell us a bit about your team. I mean, you're obviously directing, helping write these things, but I mean, how are these ideas coming to fruition?
Well, they come from, initially a lot of the ideas come from me, and then Thomas Swedilich is a writer that I've been working with for a film that I'm doing at Fox, and he started writing with me. Terry Tatchell, who wrote District 9 with me, wrote one of them with Thomas and I. But the point is to eventually have a situation where we could see a piece of awesome art online that either I found online or maybe one of the users sent to us, and we're like, you can extrapolate a story out of a single image, you know? The fight coordinator for Oates that worked with us in Thailand when we shot one of the pieces, we were in Bangkok, and this dude is just a character like I've never met before. He's a real person, but he's so funny, he's so charismatic, and he also was shot in the arm while he was reading a Hustler in the back of a car eating a chocolate bar. So he has these like really strange other stories that I was like, dude, I want to make a whole series out of you as a character, you know? So he's sort of like that can become its own thing. You can go down that road. And it doesn't need to be a year-long discussion where you have to raise all of the capital and go down all of these strange roads. You can just do it. So
that's so cool. And what you're saying is that, the stuff that you're putting out, if some indie developer comes to you and says, hey, by the way, I want to build, this cool game kind of inspired by your world using your models.
Right.
You'd love it, right?
I would love it, yeah. The more of that, the better. And that obviously hinges on the fact that people like what they're seeing.
Sure.
And hopefully they do. But
they like, or they may also twist it, right? That's where it gets fun, where they sort of iterate.
Or bend it to the way that they want to like it.
Like, well, there's three things I really like from this, and I'm going to create something new, and then that's, will inspire you, and you sort of get into this, hopefully this really, positive circle of sort of everyone contributing to this property.
Right. I mean, that is the goal. It's sort of a mixture of me being able to do what I want and be creative, and hopefully opening it up. And I know that if I was 19, I would have liked to have received the tools that allowed this film to get made.
Like I look at what Valve has done with Source Filmmaker and the Team Fortress shorts that I'm sure we've all seen are like incredible animation. And a lot of those models they released, and then if you look at like the Steam Awards when they all these creators, they use those models and make these like Pixar quality shorts.
Right.
Just using those models, and they're hilarious, but the thing that they don't necessarily always have is like high production value voiceover.
Right.
And all these other types of things. And I've always said to Valve and others, wouldn't it be cool if you could say, hey, I want some voiceover recording. I think what's going to be cool is when someone's going to come to you and say, hey, I love this model, and by the way, that actor that's in your thing, can I get them to record some lines for my thing?
Right.
And that's where it's going to start to be really cool. One person can start to get Hollywood-level production value.
Yeah, it's going to be, there's going to be this sort of uncharted area of where we're going to need to figure out how to do some of that, that is just uncharted. I don't know how that's going to play out.
No, but that's what's fun is like to be open to collaborate with, people in this community who I think, all aspire to create and now to be given these tools and be inspired by you and be willing to sort of, be here at E3, talk to this audience.
Right.
And show them something pretty special, right?
Yes. Are we pretty much getting close to that? So
I think we're getting close to that time.
So this first piece is we shot it just over a year ago, and this is a 20-minute piece in total, but we're going to show you guys about 7 minutes, which is the first third. And it's a very good example of the kind of stuff that we're trying to do, which is the first 7 minutes set up a world. They show a world. The remaining amount of time begins to introduce characters, and it's an awesome way to show you kind of what we want to make, but it still isn't it doesn't fit into any sort of form of traditional media. It's not, beginning, middle, and end, third act kind of structure is not really applicable.
It's a window
it's
into
a window
the
into
world.
It's a snapshot into the world. And the first 7 minutes are very descriptive of that world. The characters get introduced later. So as of right now, it is also the entire 20-minute film is available on Oates Studios on YouTube for free and Oates Studios on Steam for free. And if anyone likes it, buy the DLC package and help us out. But
And they'll
yeah.
get the models and things
Yeah,
like that.
they will. I mean,
concept
it's-
art. Yeah.
Yeah. It's an awesome 100-page PDF of concept art, and then we're going to sort of, I think we're going to release the dailies in about a week. But I mean, as Steam users know, you'll get notified as stuff comes up.
Wow. All right. Well, you guys want to see the world premiere of something new from Neil Blomkamp? Should we just roll it?
Just roll it, yeah.
All right, and check it out tonight, the full thing on Steam and YouTube. Enjoy.
We were once mankind. We were humanity. And now, we're no more than pests. Vermin. They came here to exterminate us. They took our history and culture. They covered our landmarks in dying humanity. The wail of the dying carried for miles. They're building some kind of breeding facility for those that survive. People that have defected say it's worse than hell. Humans becoming some kind of surrogate incubators for the alien young. They killed us in waves when they first arrived. They built these megastructures that spew methane, manufacturing their atmosphere. They've sown their crops, snuffing out our plant life, raising the global temperature, causing our cities to flood. They waged war on Earth. They set fire to our forests. It's already hard to breathe. Impossible to breathe if you are close to the stacks. Rats. Insects. Humans. They hack into our psyche, into our minds, paralyzing us. Taking control of the cerebrum and the limbic system. Rendering us as slaves. We've been able to design a brain barrier that protects us from their influence. They know we can't produce enough of these for everyone. That it's just a matter of time before the entire planet is theirs. But we are survivors. Scrounging enough to eat. Gathering enough morale to fight. Knows we're already dead. I wonder if only one sick primordial instinct keeps marching us forward aimlessly. Every rational thought tells us it's over. Every vile, deceptive, chemical emotion tells us it isn't. We're sold a different story by our politicians.
Down your guns. victory! With us, friend. Paradise!
I'll go to the new conservatory. Take me with you. Please.
There it is.
Every once in a while, something goes our way. Just 1 in 1,000. Just enough to keep fighting. A glimmer of hope. People will pay for this. They always do. Even for small victories, it seemed that everything was lost. Humanity would soon cease to exist. Until they arrived. Like angels carried on the rays of the aurora borealis. Like a biblical salvation.